Hi everybody, welcome to Langer at the Mic. I'm Mike Langer. I hope you're off to a great week. Mike Matheson was introduced to the Montreal media on Monday morning, and I'll be doing a live later this week where I get back to all of your comments, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you're also subscribed to Langer at the Mic so that I feature your comments if you can't make the live stream. But the big news of Monday is that goaltender Samuel Montembeault has been extended by the Montreal Canadiens to a 2-year, $2 million contract with an AAV of $1 million. Not an earth-shattering move by any means, but it is a big deal for him because it is the richest contract he has signed in his career from a salary standpoint, and it is a big deal as it relates to the Montreal Canadiens goaltending situation. How so? Let's discuss. First of all, I just want to acknowledge how great this is for Samuel Montembeault. As I mentioned, this is the richest contract of his career from a salary standpoint, making $1 million for these next 2 seasons, even if he ends up getting placed on waivers and playing in the AHL. He is still a fringe NHLer, but was in the right place at the right time from a personal standpoint with the Montreal Canadiens. He is a Quebecer from Bécancour, which is right across the St. Lawrence River from Trois-Rivières. So he gets to play for the Montreal Canadiens in his home province. And he got an even better opportunity with the Montreal Canadiens with the whole Carey Price situation and with the multiple Jake Allen injuries this past year. Montembeault played in a career-high 38 games this past season. It was not pretty by any means as the Montreal Canadiens finished in last place. He had an .891 save percentage and a 3.77 goals against average, which that .891 save percentage is pretty decent compared to his goals against average, as also the Habs gave up the 3rd most shots on goal per game last season. But what earned him that extension for Samuel Montembeault was the fact that Montembeault showed up and battled through every single game, regardless of what the score was. And that is a huge challenge as a goaltender playing on a bad team where you're already down 2-0 or 3-0 within the first 10 minutes and everyone in front of you basically just quit on the game and they're not going to play defense. They're not going to try to block shots. They're not going to try to have your back as much. That is a very, very difficult very difficult situation to be in for any goaltender. And both Jake Allen and Samuel Montembeault last year in those difficult situations, they still showed up, they still battled, they still gave it their all. And as a former goaltender myself, I have mad respect for goalies that go through that. It only makes them better if they are strong mentally, and Montembeault was. And that's how he earned that extension. Very well deserved. The Montembeault extension is a great story, but as it relates to the Habs goaltending situation, in one word, yikes. Because if you look at the Habs depth chart in net, at the top, of course, Carey Price with that $10.5 million AAV and a couple years left on his contract. But of course, the likelihood is that he will end up on long-term injured reserve. Even if he can still play at a high level, it likely won't be able to be for more than 10-20 games at a time. So the Canadiens have to assume that Carey Price will not be available for the majority of this upcoming season, and maybe it's quite possible that Carey Price unfortunately might not play another game for the Montreal Canadiens or in the NHL. So the Habs have to be prepared for that likelihood. Other than that, they then have Jake Allen at that $2.875 million AAV, but he is an unrestricted free agent after this season. So he is perhaps on the trade block. He is reportedly getting interest across the NHL for multiple teams. So he might end up getting traded. At number 3, Sam Montembeault, who just got re-signed on Monday, of course. And Caden Primo, who was really, really good for the Laval Rocket in their playoff run, but he is currently a restricted free agent. So what this all means is that the Canadiens still have a ton of uncertainty in net. And that goes back to what Kent Hughes mentioned in May at one of his year-end press conferences, is that he said, quote, "There is nobody in our organization that has shown year over year that they can be a number 1 goaltender in the NHL outside of Carey Price, of course, courtesy of Montreal Hockey Now. So what can be done about it? Well, there is pretty much nothing out there in terms of unrestricted free agent goalies right now. And even if there were, the Montreal Canadiens only have under $300,000 in cap space. So essentially nothing can be done for now in terms of adding to their goaltending, at least until some of their veteran forwards who are making a lot of money get moved or come off the books. Of course, talking about the likes of Hoffman and Anderson and Dvorak, Drouin and Dadonov. Their contracts expire at the end of this year, as does Paul Byron's. Yoel Armia still making $3.4 million a season for the next couple of years. So all this could very well mean that we might have to be ready for another year of Jake Allen, Samuel Montembeault, and Caden Primo splitting the time in net. But that could be a good thing because Jake Allen can boost his trade value. Samuel Montembeault could improve from last year with equal or greater opportunity, and they could possibly call up Caden Primo for some games at the Bell Center that he should not get lit up in, like when they host Arizona in October, or Philly and San Jose in November, or the Kraken, Jets, and Red Wings in January, or the Blackhawks in February. And if Caden Primo performs well in those games, well, then perhaps he can appear in tougher matchups against more difficult opponents and just take it from there. And the worst case of an Allen Montembeault Primo trio in net is that the Habs will lose a lot of games and they'll get that top 5 draft pick that you guys all want. Now, what options do the Canadiens have for their goaltending long term? If you look at their current prospects, they have Philippe Desrosiers and Kevin Poulin, both on AHL contracts. They're not obviously a long-term option. Prospects who are in the Habs development camp this past week: Emmett Croteau, who they just drafted and is committed to Clarkson University for this upcoming season; Jacob Dobbs, who's a 2020 draft pick. He is at Ohio State. Joel Verbetic was a 2021 draft pick. He is due for the Laval Rocket. And Frederick Dicau, who was a 2019 draft pick. He is going to be playing in Frölunda in the Sweden Hockey League this upcoming season. Now, the interesting thing is that Verbetic and Dicau both have to be signed by June 2023, or else they become unrestricted free agents. So those are definitely names to remember, Dicau and Verbetic, but they're obviously all a ways away. They are, and the other names I just mentioned, they're all a ways away, as goaltenders do take a while to develop. And Primo is the closest to being NHL ready in the Habs system right now in terms of their prospects. And even so, he can still use a little more AHL time just to make sure that his great run with the Laval Rocket this past spring wasn't an anomaly. Now, what if the Canadiens go the route of seeking long-term goaltending help from elsewhere? I did mention the name Yusei Saros on this very channel in a pretty ridiculous trade for Jeff Petrie, but that's another story. But I'll mention Saros' name again because the Predators did in fact sign Yaroslav Askarov to his entry-level contract, which means they'll likely want to get him. He's still young, but they'll still likely want to get him into the NHL, at least to appear in some games in the near future. But Saros' contract does expire in 2025, so could that possibly be an option for the Habs down the road? Maybe, we'll see. I wouldn't count on it though. What about maybe Semyon Varlamov or Ilya Sorokin from the Islanders? I feel like that would have possibly been involved in the Romanov trade, but it's still possibly an option. Who knows? What about maybe Logan Thompson from the Vegas Golden Knights, or Jonas Korpisalo from the Columbus Blue Jackets, or Karel Vejmelka from the Arizona Coyotes, or dare I say make a swap of Carey Price for Sergei Bobrovsky? We'll take your bad contract for our bad contract. It'd be close to impossible. I mean, man, those contracts, moving those contracts would be like trying to sail a cruise ship on land. The bottom line is that goaltenders are so tough to predict, and great ones seemingly come out of nowhere. Like Igor Shesterkin, he was a 4th round pick of the Rangers, ended up winning a Vezina trophy this year. So we've just been spoiled so much by the great years of this man right here, Carey Price, that right now, like, look, the Canadiens are they're just in a place where they're gonna have to try to find a long-term solution in net. And with that being said, though, it won't be the worst thing to roll with a Jake Allen, Sam Montembeault duo with a sprinkle of Cayden Primo for next year. Allen has been also, like I mentioned, a consummate professional in the toughest games that he played this past year, but he could obviously be traded with his value increasing and just a year left on his contract. Sam Montembeault, fresh off the extension, could be even better than last year, maybe not. Cayden Primo could maybe finally translate his AHL success to the NHL, maybe not. But regardless, I will say this though, when the Canadiens have the cap room and their window to compete opens up, they better have some kind of plan for their goaltending situation. What do you think of the Sam Montembeault signing, and how should the Canadiens approach their goaltending situation long term? Let me know in the comment section below. But as usual, if you enjoyed this video, hit like, hit subscribe, definitely hit subscribe so that way I can feature your comments in my live streams. You can give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Langer for both. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next time. Go Habs, go.